when it's 2 p.m. and I'm still drinking coffee, it's going to be a good day.
Well, I have I have stopped drinking my Southern
You've
delicacy.
got the bubbly.
Yeah, I'm like strictly on like flavored soda water now
Oh,
with no
hey,
caffeine and no.
that's the
I know.
crap my kids drink because they're like, "Do you know how much sugar is in a Coke?" And I'm like, "Well, you did not grow up in the 80s. Like, I think I just had a straight IV of sugar,
Right.
like straight cane sugar."
Right. And then we just migrated to high fructose corn syrup along the way, and
I don't think I ever drank a glass of water. Did you? I mean, like a straight
oh,
decade, and I don't think
oh
I ever drank
no.
a glass of water.
No.
What was
But
that?
we weren't yeah,
Evian
we
was
weren't.
naive spelled backwards. That was what I remember.
You now that you mention that. Hey everybody, welcome to a fireside chat where we're talking about hydration today.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof, or
Choose your
hydrating
side.
with all the wrong things. But so glad you could join us today. I say this all the time when I'm doing sprints, Abby, but I absolutely love when we pop onto a live stream and the chat is popping
Bumping
off. I love
already?
it.
Heck
Love
yeah.
it, love it, love it. Who all do we have joining us today? NJ, of course, Rob. Hello, Zarintha. Hello, Renee. Elsie Jane. Hello, Hope Harris. Hello, Berlin. Hello,
Berlin.
hello. Everybody's in the house today, and I know I
Rob.
skipped over. No, I skipped over some folks, but today we have an interesting topic, and this is in this show is the fireside chat where Abby and I grab a topic.
I don't know what I just did.
You just
I don't like that.
there.
Okay, thank you.
Abby and I come up with a topic, and we do very little preparation. Well, I won't say preparation. We don't talk amongst ourselves before the show and say what we're going to bring to the show. We have a topic that we agree on, and we say let's just talk it out, and you guys get to be a part of the conversation. So today, the idea that we had to talk about is defining your ideal reader. And I'll just kind of tell you what I think about is when I think ideal reader, I'm thinking about when I'm writing, who am I writing for? Who is my target audience? Who is when I'm crafting a story, who do I imagine is sitting on the other side of the paperback, the Kindle, listening to the audiobook, and what are they bringing to the story? Because we don't just make up stories in a vacuum. We think of writing as this solitary endeavor, that it's all me coming to you, and the reality is actually this alchemy of the writer and the reader. And it's not only what I think I'm delivering to you, but it's the circumstances that you're reading the book in and what you bring to the story that you interpret the narrative with. What tools are you bringing? What experiences are you bringing? And as the writer, how do I anticipate the things that you're bringing to the story so that everybody has a great experience with the book? Abby, how do you think about your ideal reader?
Well, I have never written anything that I did not think about my ideal reader from the
Yeah.
absolute get go. And I tend to make my ideal readers, I mean, I write for real people that I know. I mean,
Yeah.
every book that I've ever written, I have a kid that as I'm writing the story, I am literally talking to them in my head as I write. And so that's how I think about it, is they're actually the person I am talking to every word that I put on that page. Um
Interesting. Did you from the beginning did you have
mhm.
that idea? Because I
Yeah.
I didn't I was not that intentional when I began writing.
Mhm.
And I would say that my first novel that I wrote was written for me. And I think a lot of people feel that way. They're like they're writing because they don't
I
understand
have
who
so
their
much to
audience
say
is.
about that.
And they don't they don't understand, kind of the whole concept of the ideal reader. And I think a lot of people start writing because they feel like they have something to say, and
Mhm.
maybe it's, I think for a lot of us, there's a little bit of self therapy that comes from
Oh,
writing, and
yeah.
so we are our ideal reader because we're trying to process some things, and so when you start off, kind of you are your ideal reader, and not that that's a bad thing, but it's very short
No,
sighted.
but I can challenge that. I can make you
Okay, please do.
think a little bit differently too. And I'm just going to say that my book that I published last year, I there was a lot of therapy that was involved in that one. There was this idea, this thing that I was myself wrestling with, and it's
Hmm.
this idea that we all have really good intentions, but sometimes we just screw stuff up royally, right? I mean, that was like
Hmm.
the whole point of me writing this book is like what happens when you have really good intentions and everything just goes awry. And I was processing that idea for myself because let's face it, I screw stuff up left and right. I mean, I probably make at least a dozen mistakes a day, but every one of them is literally made with the best intents, and I just want to be seen for my good intentions. And so that's
Do you know
I'm
why that
writing a
happens?
book. Why is that?
Because you're human, Abby.
I know. I know. But, there are times when we do things to cause trouble on purpose. And there are times
Yes.
when we do things and we don't mean to cause trouble. And that's what
Yeah.
I was focused on. So even though
Yeah.
I was writing something for myself where I'm working out these ideas, the
Yeah.
person that I wanted to write it for was a kid named Turner who lives in my neighborhood because I
Okay.
saw some of myself reflected in him. He was the audience. This kid is amazing, and he's also a total hot mess. And he is my spirit animal. And I just love this child. And I wrote this book very much for him, even though I was also writing for myself. And so here's the thing, like as I'm looking through the chat here and I'm seeing things that come up, we have so many people that are like, I'm writing for me. I'm writing for me. I'm writing for me. I'm also writing for me, but I'm also writing for an ideal reader. And so here's what I have to say to those people who are like, my ideal reader is me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Once upon a time, I thought that was a really valid thing to write for yourself as an ideal reader.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I say. If you don't care that you ever sell a book, if you are writing for the edification of just writing because it feels good and you don't care if no one ever buys the book, you're fine. Or if the only people that buy it is like your mom and your best friend and you don't really care
Mm-hmm.
if they read it or not, you're just glad that they bought it and they're proud of you.
Yeah.
And that's why you're writing. It is 100% okay that you are your ideal reader because you are, in fact, your ideal reader. But if your
Right.
dream is that at least one stranger buys your book and loves it, that stranger is your ideal reader. Let that sink in for a second. If you want even
Mm-hmm.
one stranger to buy your book, that's your ideal reader.
Okay. Let me sidetrack us for a second and just kind of go in on that statement that you just made, because when
All
I
right.
published my first book, um, it connected with a group of readers that I never anticipated,
Oh,
and it I went to some friend's house for dinner. They invited us over, and I saw my book sitting on their coffee table, and it had like all the pages were dog-eared, like, in several places, and I, like, flipped the cover open, and there were, like, highlighted passages, and that freaked me out. I was like,
Ooh.
"What in the world is going on here?" And one, it kind of it like, poked a finger directly in some of my neuroses because I hate dog-eared books. That just, like, freaks me out a little bit, you know? But
Don't look at my desk.
yeah, look, I don't look at my desk. I've got things that would make people cringe. But anyway, and so I realized after having written that book that there were certain things about my writing that I could connect with people with that I'd never thought about. But I
Mhm,
didn't know that until I had published something. So how
mhm.
do we harness those ideas without going through all of the process of publishing and wasting a year of your life? And not waste is the wrong word because I learned a lot
Wrong,
from
yeah,
it,
right.
but the book was not targeted the way it could have been, and there were things about the writing that I would have done differently had I known that someone other than me was gonna write it, you know?
Mhm.
So, like,
Yeah.
how do we learn those lessons
I mean,
without
so
going all in? Because I'm very much the kind of person who, like, I don't know how to do something, so I'm just gonna do it and learn
Mhm.
along the way, and then when I'm finished, I'll take all the lessons from it, and I'll do
You
it
mean
better next time.
you jump out of the plane and then you build your parachute on the way down?
On the way down,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
100%.
yeah. I get that.
100%.
I get
Yeah.
that. And the only reason why I thought about it before I wrote my very first book is because my mentor, Jenny Nash, made me think about it.
Mm.
I was relying on her expertise after having written umpteen million books and worked with umpteen bazillion writers over the course of umpteen million years. And she said to me, we need to think about your ideal reader. Now, one of the exercises that she has you do as part of her blueprint for a book thing, right, is think about your
Mhm.
ideal reader. It's a whole exercise about it. But the more I have written and the more I have thought about this, because this is something that I actually think about a fair amount,
Yeah.
she allows you to sort of make somebody up. Like you just make them up, right? And I don't like that. I don't
Okay.
like it because I could make up something totally wrong or false or be making up some fictional person who really doesn't exist anywhere or in any sense that I could find them, which is the
Right.
point of this is you have to not just write to these people but eventually you have to find them as well. And so for me, choosing someone I know that I am writing very specifically for actually helps me find more people like them. So, for instance, Turner, my neighbor, right? He's in middle school. He just started middle school. He's homeschooled. He's homeschooled by his mom, and he goes to these cohorts for other children who are also homeschooled, but
Yep.
they all are like super focused on outdoorsy adventures like fishing
Love it.
and hiking, and they do all these farming projects and everything that these homeschooling cohorts do actually fits in perfectly with the novel that I wrote. And so now I have a direction because if there's one of them out there, there's more of them out there.
Right.
And
Right.
because I have a concrete starting place, that helps me now start to pick through the weeds of readers to find the ones that look like him. So,
So what I did, and I love that, by the way. I love that you have a specific child and that
mhm,
you're focusing on Turner. I love that because what I did after going through that first book experience is I recognized that my wife was kind of um my brainstorming partner. The house that we had at the time when I started, we had a swing in our front yard, one of the double swings that,
Mhm.
with the bench kind of thing. And every afternoon I would get home from work, and we had 5 children at home, and we would go away from the children where we could have some peace and quiet for a moment and talk about the day and, connect and
And the
all that.
children,
And we
talk
would
about the children.
and talk about talk badly about the children,
Yeah.
so um um some of my grandchildren watch this channel sometimes because they want to watch Papa on TV, and we're not talking about you, precious children. If you're watching later, we
No,
think you're the best.
they
but
are.
but your parents, on the other hand, your parents. Um, anyway, so we would kind of talk through story ideas. I would bounce ideas, and she would be, she would have comments like, "Oh, that's great. Have you thought about this?" And uh, something happens when you have a story partner that you bounce ideas off of. You come up with ideas that neither one of you ever had,
Mhm.
but the process of talking it out creates new things. And so that's why I'm really really big on story partners that you can brainstorm with. And and you and I are working on some things where people can, that it's neither here nor there, but anyway, um there's something great about that
It's
process.
up our
um
sleeves.
that's right. That's right. So after that process, my wife and a couple of friends whom I knew had read my initial book and could give me feedback on what they liked, what really connected with them, they became my ideal readers. And then later on down the road, where I wrote more and then found other readers that I did not know, but it kind
Mhm.
of widened that net of people that appreciated what I did for specific reasons, and I could then kind of build this you know automaton of an ideal reader that's kind of how I did it.
Mhm.
I kind of had to, reverse engineer the ideal reader um, from
So
from experience.
here's a question for you.
Okay.
So, my ideal reader is Turner. And in
Okay.
order, as I'm writing this book to him, I also pretty much 100% my main character ended up being Turner. Do your ideal readers ever make it onto the page? Because every one of mine has become my main character.
Excuse me, I had a cough drop. Tried to go down the wrong way. Um, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
Just about everyone I know in life becomes a character in a book. That's the if you've done enough author interviews, there are certain completely trite questions that
mhm.
everyone hates to be asked, like, where do you get your ideas from? That's the worst question in the world. Never ask a writer, where do your ideas come from?
Because
Because
it's
we all know
literally everywhere.
everywhere, everywhere. Now an appropriate question might be, how do you distinguish the really great ideas from the subpar ones? Because story ideas are everywhere. Your job is
Mhm.
to filter out which ones can become something. That's the question. Um, I was going somewhere with this and I forgot what I was going.
Do your ideal readers make it to the pages
Oh,
you're
oh yeah,
good?
yeah, 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 yeah. So another trite question is, do you know the character? Are your characters based on people in real life? And people will say, no, I completely make up characters. That is bull crap. Everybody's characters are based on somebody they know, and
Mhm.
whether in reality or whatever.
Or
Maybe it's your
even
yeah,
themselves.
yeah, or and the other side of that question is, do you write yourself into your books? Yes.
How can you
Yes.
not?
Yeah,
That's
the problem is people are three dimensions, and you'll write one character that's this piece of you, and then you'll write a completely antagonistic character that's this other piece, and they're both you. They're just, they're Hank that wakes up in a good mood, and they're Hank that's had a bad night's sleep, and that's just so So yeah,
Mean
yeah,
Abby. Sometimes Mean Abby makes it to the page.
of course she does, and you wouldn't have it any other way, because
It's
that's how you
harder to get it out
explore.
on the page than in real life.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So yeah, so how do those so how long did it take for you to land on Turner as your ideal reader? And
Oh.
the other question is, do you have an ideal reader for the corpus of your work, or is Turner the ideal reader for this book, and your next book maybe has a different ideal reader? How do you think? And do you just have a stable of ideal readers?
So Turner's older brother, John Dillon, was the ideal reader for my Stu the Duck series, even though he has now officially aged out of it because I did start Stu the Duck many years ago and put it aside. And he was really the person that I was writing that one to for a very, very specific reason, because Stu the Duck eats bugs, and John Dillon used to eat the bugs off my daughter's desk in first grade because she's utterly terrified of them. But they were at a public school in Florida. So, guess what's in every classroom? Bugs.
Checks out. Yeah.
Uh huh. And I loved him so much for that I was literally wanting to write a story that would make him laugh, and that included bugs. But I also knew he was a reluctant reader. And so I tried to write something that I knew was going to hook a reluctant reader. Same thing with Turner, reluctant reader. And so I wanted to write something that I thought was going to hook him. Same thing with both of my girls. I've written books 100% where they were, each one of them, my ideal reader. They were reluctant readers. And so for me, my overarching umbrella isn't one specific person. It's
Hmm.
who are the reluctant readers I know? Why do they not want to pick up a book? And what would make them want to pick up a book? Even if it's something as silly as the character makes me laugh and eats bugs, and I like to eat bugs, that's going to make me pick up a book.
Right. Checks out.
So that's kind of how I look at it. But I also know, my fear is that one day all my children and my friends' children and my nieces and nephews will age out of being my readers, and I won't know how to find these children anymore. And I'm just going to have to keep writing to, like, you know, the younger version of my daughter. I don't know if that's going to work out as well. So I kind of like, I send me your reluctant readers, people, if you're listening to this in 10 years.
Well,
Look me up.
by that time, you're going to be a wildly successful,
There we go.
middle grade author, and you'll be getting, letters from readers, and you'll be able to build
And
that
then
cohort
that's your, yeah,
of readers. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But what about
of
you?
course.
What would be like your, do you have like an
So
overarching
I've
umbrella?
I've figured out that I have a number of different ideal readers,
Mhm.
and because I've written kind of several different genres. Um, and the last 2 years I've spent writing two science fiction trilogies, and one of my sons-in-law is a massive Star Wars fan. He's so I would have conversations with Cole, is his name, and I would say, Cole, what which era of Star Wars is your favorite? And it was like I would pick his brain, like, why did this connect with you as a little kid? And now
Mhm.
his son Rhett, he's starting to show him stuff, and I was just trying to figure out kind of you know what captures a kid's imagination in a way that they can carry that into adulthood. And so kind of Cole was my ideal reader for the science fiction stuff. The the murder mystery that I wrote last year. Um, my youngest son Noah, his best friend is a girl named Gabby, and she's been a friend of our family. Her dad and I are best friends, and so Gabby and I would have conversations about murder mysteries all the time, and so a lot of the ideas for that book came from conversations that I would have with Gabby, and she kind of became my ideal reader for that. And then she embodies, a bunch of different
Mhm,
people that also that. So for me, it's always been people that I could have conversations with. I could pick their
mhm,
brain. I could find out what it is that what is it in a murder mystery. What is the twist that that keeps bringing you back time after time to the genre? And what do you love to see? What do you like to see authors subvert? What do you love to see in the genre? And then
mhm.
what do you like to see people subvert, to turn the tables, that sort of thing? What gets you excited about it? And kind of having those conversations makes it.
So when you get stuck when writing, do you ever use your ideal reader to help make the decisions on how to get unstuck? Like, what is it that Gabby would like to see on the page here? Or is
I
that
think
getting a little too deep into leaning
well,
on your ideal reader?
that's definitely how I started. I
Mhm,
would, as I was just trying to figure out how do I write with intentionality,
mhm,
I would, ask these questions a lot as I would find myself. So, um, I found lately, the last couple of years, I've come into the first draft phase more prepared, and I've
mhm,
anticipated the kinds of questions that I want to ask
mhm.
through the experience of getting stuck and then having to kind of deconstruct what I've done to figure out where I went wrong or why that my brain's just not, carrying forward. It's usually because something is amiss. So I've learned to anticipate those things and ask those questions ahead of time. Um, and and some of that's just comes with
Maturity.
learning maturity, but understanding your own process and
Mhm.
understanding how you work through your process and understanding where the
Yeah.
road typically are. And for me, the only way I could get there was by asking those questions as I would come up. And now I've just kind of learned these are places where I would get stuck. So I've just kind of learned to. And I also have a poodle that's losing her mind in the other room, because someone has walked in the front door. And if you've ever had, is this your standard poodle? That's
Yes, and I'm thinking, how can he hear your poodle because I have my earbuds in?
yeah,
But
I don't know, but
somehow,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. Someone walked in our living room, and I can hear all 8 pounds of her just giving them fits.
Well, all 68 pounds of mine is answering. They're like,
Yeah,
you
that's so funny.
know.
That's so funny. But yeah, that it just comes with practice and
Mhm,
learning yourself. And if you've written 2 or 3 novels and you've been through that process and you look back, you can see that, okay, this is where I've had trouble in the past. Let me think through this ahead of time. And this is why, we talk about the pantser plotter spectrum, and people are not fully in one camp or the other. My theory is, but they live on that spectrum somewhere. And this is why I started, firmly in the pantser camp. I've come more toward the plotter side. I live about here now instead of here. I can't make myself write out a full outline. I do know where I'm starting. I know where I'm finishing. I know tent poles along the way, and then but I've figured how to um anticipate where those problem areas are. So it's kind of getting
It's
to know
funny.
yourself.
It's not it's not like writing gets easier. I think you're onto something. It gets more predictable, and you're
Mhm.
able to solve those problems before they become real
Yes.
problems, because you have
Right.
that just enough experience to be able,
Mhm.
which is why, like, they say, yeah, Stephen King might be a straight up pantser, but he's written enough flippin' books that he's sort of earned that pantser card, because he
Right.
now is so practiced at the rhythm of storytelling that he understands what needs to come next, what naturally falls where, that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
there's definitely something to be said for that. And if you're not yet practiced, I really do think it's super important to think about the ideal reader if you want to sell books. Like, let's put that caveat
Yeah.
back in. If you want to sell books, because you do need the ideal reader as you're writing. It does, I think, to me, make for a more cohesive book in a way. I mean, it just feels a little more genuine to me, because you're writing to a real person, not somebody that you've just made up, that you're writing
Right.
to. um but then when you go to then look at, how do I sell this, you just have a better direction.
Yeah.
So if this is
Yeah.
something that you want to make into a career, and you've not yet thought about that ideal reader, I would really challenge you to sit down and think about that. And you know, I'm looking for kids, you're looking for adults, but what kind of adults you're looking for. If you're writing a
Mhm.
fantasy book, who are your friends that read fantasy? Do you have a
Right.
neighbor that reads fantasy? I mean, you might not have to know them super well, but you have to know them enough that you can
Well,
have
and
these imaginary conversations in your head or
yeah.
call them up.
Well, and one thing I've learned is people want to talk about what they're excited about.
Mhm.
And y everybody's an expert in what they're interested in. And, it may be novels. We hope it's novels, but, you can learn a lot from someone who's really into certain movies or TV shows. That's a very popular medium these days. Um, so if you're writing fantasy, do you have a friend that was, like, really into Game of Thrones? You know, what did they like about it? What parts of character development really connected with them? What did they not care for? And then if they didn't care for it, why? And people love to talk. If you find out what someone is passionate about, just ask them questions and don't you don't have to have a notepad and well, let me write this down because I'm doing market research. Don't
Maybe
let
you
it
want to
like
have that.
that.
It makes you feel very official.
Maybe well, maybe you do. Maybe you do. And that's your business if you do. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that if you find somebody that's passionate about something, just have a conversation with them. They'll they'll tell you what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. And if you have two people that are really passionate about something and they both say they didn't like a particular aspect of it, then you're probably onto something. People are going to have differences of opinion, but when two people or three people or four people all hate the same thing, the trends start appearing and
Maybe pay attention.
maybe pay attention, and that's, yeah. So if it's Game of Thrones, it's probably dragons. Yeah, though, the dragons are very polarizing. I don't
I
know.
don't like dragons. Can I just throw that out there?
And
Okay, but
you're allowed to not like dragons, Abby.
can I tell you this? If I ever write a dragon story, I know exactly who my ideal reader would be for that story. And I know this kid well enough that it would put my butt in a chair to write a story
Mm,
about dragons. Would you like to hear about this child?
yes.
Once upon a time, when I taught high school, I was teaching this Art 1 drawing class to freshmen, all freshmen.
I need
And
to take that
I
class.
had, oh my God, I had so many. delinquents in this class that I didn't have enough tables to separate them at. No matter how I rearranged my room, there were always at least 2 delinquents at every table. So I couldn't even spread them out enough so that like I had some sanity. But there was one delinquent who was the head of all delinquents, and his name was Josh. And this kid walked in every day with the sole purpose of making my life a living hell. He was distracting, he was disruptive, and the only time the kid ever shut up was when he picked up the book Aragon. So now Aragon, Christopher Paolini, right? It was like he was a kid when he wrote that book, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
this kid, I pulled all of his testing scores and all of his like middle school academic records. And I realized that this kid was super, super smart. He just made bad grades. Like on all his state tests, he blew it out of the water. But he just made terrible grades in class because he was so smart. He was just disinterested. So I pulled him aside and I made a deal with him. And I said, listen up, I will buy the audiobook for Aragon, and we will listen to it all together in class, as long as you sit quietly while I give my demo every day. And when we start to work, I'll turn it on. But the moment you get disruptive, I turn Aragon off. And he was like, sounds better than working. Because I was like, I don't care if you do the work or not. You get the grade that you get,
Right.
as long as you're not disrupting everyone else. All of the children in the class, every single ding dong one of them got so sucked into this book that it was the best like $45 I ever spent. This was back when you had to like buy the books on CDs,
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
I bought the second Aragon book, and it was the semester that the movie came out that this happened. Do you know my entire class, including Josh, met me at the movie theater to watch Aragon?
What?
And I got control of the class. Josh made a D. So he passed. I didn't have to see him again.
Yeah. Okay. I'm clipping this portion out and I'm emailing it to Christopher Paolini this afternoon.
Oh my God. You tell him that he was literally my savior that year. I couldn't have done it without him.
How about that? I love that. That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. So
your ideal readers are out there if you're looking for them. And that's what you have to do. You have to have your eyes peeled. You never know when it's your coworker, your weird great aunt, you know, some person you've just bumped into at the grocery store. They may be your ideal reader if you're just open to looking for them.
Right. What about the chat? Has anyone had success or any particular difficulty in connecting with an ideal reader? Let us know in the chat. I'd like to hear what you guys what your experience has been like.
While we wait for them, I will say, Hope, that I'll give it to you. Toothless is pretty awesome, only because my friend Jeff worked on that movie, and I'm not going to say mean.
Did he really?
He did, yeah.
My son Noah was maybe like 7 when that first movie came out, and loved it so much that for years I tried to hunt down Cressida Cowell, the author of those books, to try to interview her, because he was and she lives on a little island somewhere, and she's just like off the grid completely, and I never could connect.
Oh my God,
I bought
that's
him
my
all the
dream.
Books. I know. She like lives on a little island in the Orkney Islands somewhere off of Scotland or somewhere. It's just like,
ooh, that sounds cold.
Yeah,
though.
It does. It does.
Yeah,
but,
I want like a warm.
Yeah, Yeah. That's so funny. So, do you ever let your ideal readers know, like that, hey, you're my ideal reader, I'm writing this with you in mind? And like, how do they respond when with kids? Well, I won't say just with kids. Most people of any age, when you let them know, I took what, the conversations that we had, I took that to heart, and I'm writing with the with those things in mind. I've never had a bad reaction from
No,
someone when I tell them that.
no, because it's cool. Like, let's just
Yeah,
face it. Some writer wants to
yeah,
write a book literally for you. I mean, how are you going to say no to that? That's just
yep,
amazing. And the one that I'm working on right now, like I've outlined it. I have my comps because that's the other thing I start with is my
yeah,
comps. I know what my comps are. I know the vibe that I want. This book is a little more serious. I had named my main character, and my main character just the name wasn't sitting right with me. It didn't feel like it was a really good fit. And my daughter recently made a friend at high school, and she started coming over and hanging out at the house. And this young girl she is delightful. And I will not lie, I have stolen her name to be a part of the book. And I have forbid Beatrix from telling her that I stole her name just yet, because I want to make sure it sticks, before we say,
yeah,
hey. But the more I think about her as I'm writing this, the more I'm writing it not just to her, but to almost this amalgamation of my daughter's friends, her friend group,
hmm,
because the lesson that I want this book to convey is one that I think these girls need to learn. And so I'm now thinking about all of them as I write it. So this is going to be the first time that I've really thought about more than one person as my ideal reader as I write. But this is going to be, I think, an interesting sort of foray into it.
yeah.
So,
Interesting. Interesting. I remembered a sort of hot take that I was going to have a few minutes ago. It's not really a
ooh.
hot take, but if you um, if you if you go into a project and you say that you yourself are your ideal reader and that you're only writing for yourself, um, then you probably just need to write in a diary. If you're
Oh.
going to publish a book, even if you're saying, well, I'm writing down my stories to hand down to my family. I'm writing this for my children. Well, they're your ideal reader. Then that's who you're writing for. You're trying to connect. You're trying to tell the story that you have. Maybe they're fictionalized stories about your life. Maybe it's a memoir, and but you want to write it in a way that will connect with them so that you can pass down the family legacy, or whatever it is. But they are your ideal reader. And then if you have book buyers, that you're writing toward, then they are your ideal reader. If you yourself are your ideal reader and you don't care if anybody else in the world ever reads it, you're doing this strictly for you, then write a diary. I mean, that's fine. Write it just for yourself. But if you want it to connect with someone other than you, then have an ideal reader in mind. That's
You
a bit of a
only
hot
need
take, but I
one,
don't think
too.
so.
You
Yeah.
only need one. So
Hmm.
it shouldn't be too terribly hard because you're not yet thinking about the whole sea of readers. You're thinking about one very specific one. And so
Right.
it shouldn't be a daunting task to sort of think about that. They're both barking at something in the front yard, you guys. It's probably the cat, possibly someone else's dog taking a walk. Maybe the horses are walking by. I don't know who it is. It's probably another four-legged animal, and they're driving me nuts. So,
Yeah. When you're dealing with poodles, it doesn't even have to be a real threat. It could be an imagined threat, and they'll just I don't know. It's something about the breed. Who knows? Um, yeah, they're trying to find their ideal reader. Maybe that's what.
Yeah. Just like, might be somebody at my little free library taking one of my books and who truly is my ideal reader. You don't know. We're joking. It could very well be somebody out at my gate at my little free library. So,
I love it. I love it.
absolutely.
So if someone is like, well, I'm writing my first book, and I just don't know who I'm writing to, who I should have in mind. How do they go about finding those ideal? We've shared a couple things, but talking with people that are interested in the things that you want to write about. Are there
I
any
got a
other
tip.
tips that you can think of?
I got a tip. All right. So,
Okay,
again,
lay it on us.
we're leaning on something that's another one of my favorite things to talk about. I love
Yeah.
talking about comps. I love starting with comps. The comps that I
Okay.
start with aren't necessarily like my marketing comps, they're more just like inspirational for me.
Mm-hmm.
These are the books that inspired me to want to write this story.
Yeah, and just talk really quickly about what do you
Mhm.
mean when you say comp? What is
Okay.
like
It's a
because
comparative
this was
title.
a bit of a foreign concept to me, although I realized that this was something I always did. I just didn't realize that I did it, and I think most people do. They just don't know how to put a name to it.
So, comparative titles or comps, if you are a librarian, you call them read alikes. It's people who like
Mm.
this book would also like your book, right? I start with comps because, like, when I started off writing A Little Trouble Goes a Long Way, I wanted to write something that read like Charlotte's Web meets The Borrowers meets The Dukes of Hazzard. So you take those three things. Notice one of them is not even a book, right?
Right,
But you take those three things, and together, very quickly, you understand the vibe of what it is I'm trying to
right,
do, right?
right.
So, very easy for me as well, even though Charlotte's Web is not a new book, it's a classic book. So, that's one of the things I can do is say, hey, did your kid enjoy Charlotte's Web? Because if they enjoyed Charlotte's Web, guess what? They're going to like my book. Right. So this is why agents will ask you for comps when you pitch in your query letter, is because they want comps though that are recent and relevant. Recent means within the last 3 to 5 years, only because they are literally using them for marketing. They want to know
Hmm.
things like when you go to Amazon and you go to the also bots, that's where your book is going
Right,
to fall, because that helps them understand, oh, I actually know the person who sold that book or bought that book or whatever at the publishing house. Like, they have that helps them with the inner workings of marketing and book sales. Right now, you're using them with your ideal reader as, okay, some kid who really liked Charlotte's Web, that might be a kid who likes my book. So for me and the one that I'm writing right now, one of my biggest comps is Ronya the Robber's Daughter, right? Which is not a really well-known book. It's Astrid Lindgren. She also wrote Pippi
hmm,
Longstocking. Now, more people know Pippi Longstocking than know
yeah.
Ronya, but two very different books, two very different vibes, even though they're the same author. And so I'm looking more for kids who want this quiet, very low, just an underpinning of magic that sort of like is woven
Hmm.
very quietly into the story. The environment is a character. Like, these are the things I'm thinking about, and that's the vibe I'm trying to, you know, build. And a kid who liked that, that's going to most likely be one of my ideal readers. So again, a little harder to find when we're talking Ronya the Robber's Daughter than if we're talking Pippi Longstocking, but they're there. So what about you?
Um, yeah, I almost always think in terms of uh I would like to I want to write a story that Star Wars meets um, uh, I had an idea, but Indiana Jones, like the last series I
Mm,
wrote,
mhm.
was Star Wars meets Indiana Jones, literally. And so I'm thinking, okay, what is it I love about Star Wars? What is it? What is it that I love about Indiana Jones? And what is the intersection between those two things? How can I make these two things that on the surface have very little to do with each other? Um, but for me, it's always that on the surface, it seems like they don't have anything together, but when you really look at it, they overlap already, and I just kind of have to find what the overlap is already. And if you think about Indiana Jones and Star Wars, there's actually a lot of overlap because Star Wars, the story is a very old story. It's a very old world. There's lots of history and there's lots of kind of rediscovered um, technology, magic. It's not called magic, but it is magic. And these things have been covered up and uncovered for centuries, all through for millennia in the Star Wars ethos. Um, and so you start thinking, well, this is already this is a precedent that has been set already. Now, how can I then take these things, plant an earthbound archaeologist, a la Indiana Jones, and bring him into that world, and boom, um, that's my new book, The Signal Beneath the Sand, that comes out in April 1st, is that book, and that's where it came from. I was thinking about these two things and figured out where they intersect, and bam, there it was.
So your ideal reader, I mean, who likes Star Wars and Indiana Jones? I mean, that's
Everybody.
just a really simple question. Everybody, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of people, at least of our
All of my
generation,
friends do. Yeah.
I mean, we have a nostalgia for it. And so
Right.
that's part of what you're trying to capture is the nostalgia of those
Yes.
stories, those worlds, and that appeals to a very particular type of reader. And that's what you're tapping into. Same thing that I'm doing. I'm looking for people that, like, even if they've never seen the Dukes of Hazzard, like what little kid who doesn't want to read and wants to go fishing and probably has pigs on his property, right? Would totally dig the Dukes of Hazzard if that was a thing that was on TV again, that sort of thing. So that's
And and
what's that?
and when I was looking for my ideal readers for this,
Mhm.
I was at my friend JJ's house. We were cooking something. We were standing by the grill, and I said, "Do you remember when we stood in line in 1980 for The Empire Strikes Back? Do you remember that?" Oh yeah, and so I just kind of pitch him a softball question like that, and oh yeah, I remember that. I was so hyped for this. I was so excited to see this. And then when it was on the screen and I saw this, and then Luke, I am your father, and if you just find these softballs to pitch people, they'll tell you what they love about it. Just give
Yeah,
them the opportunity. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And by the
So,
way, Bernadette, I believe even if Gabby wants 5 comps, most agents, so I can say this, Bernadette, who's here listening today, is working with Gabby,
yeah.
who's a coach. Agents, when you pitch them, when they want comps, you're actually allowed to also use a movie or a television show. Maybe don't give them 5 movies and 0 books, but if you can capture your vibe in a television show or a movie like Indiana Jones,
Mhm.
like Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars has books and it has canon and it has everything, but it's most people know it for the movies. I think that's pretty safe to say, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You know, say too. But if you have a movie or a television show that catches your vibe, throw that in because that to me is the whole point of this is you're finding comps that fit the vibe of your story and then you're finding readers who also fit that vibe of your story, so they're just like on a mind map. Your book is in the middle and you have one line going here and one line going here, but it all
Right.
feeds your book.
And
Games,
Berlin has a
movies, any of it.
yeah. Berlin has a great comment that I'm going to get to in just a second because I think this is really important for us to hit on. But we're talking a lot about selling books and the marketing. This goes definitely toward who you're going to sell the book to.
Mhm,
But I want to just um, reiterate that this is more than just the marketing of the book.
mhm.
Knowing this information ahead of time,
Yep.
knowing who you're writing toward, who that ideal reader is that we're talking about, will help you in the writing, not just the marketing. This is more than just selling the book. This will help you understanding what people expect to see, what they hope to see, what they like about the genre, and what they would like to see subverted in the genre will help you in those tough moments where everybody starts writing a book and they're on fire for it, and it just, ooh, it's every time you hit the keys of the keyboard, it's just magic. And then you get about 30,000 words, and it'll help in those times.
That's kind of what I think I meant by when I said you're going to end up with a more cohesive book when you think about this ahead
Yes.
of time, is because you're writing to an audience and then you're trying to sell to that same audience instead of just writing anywhere that you can think of and then being like, now what hole am I going to squish this peg into? It becomes a seamless process instead of
Yeah.
something that you end up trying to force. And so I think is the comment that you're talking about that Berlin had about discovering that a lot of her friends don't know much. Uh-huh.
Yes.
About the
Yes.
tales
I've
of King
discovered that a lot
Arthur.
of yes, which is what I'm writing about. I hope they love those stories when they read mine. This is a great comment from Berlin.
Mhm.
Is there a chance that people that you did not have in mind will love the story even though they don't think they're an ideal reader? Because I've had this happen before. Someone
Mhm.
is like, "Well, I don't like those kinds of stories," and then I convince them, just give it a couple of chapters, and there's something about the character that they fall in love with, and they go on an adventure with this character that they thought that they had no interest in, but I for whatever reason had built a character that resonated with them, and then they would follow that character through anything, even things they think they don't like.
You
Have
know
you had that
why?
experience, Abby? Why is that?
You wrote someone who is very genuine and authentic. So when I was working on my first book and I was working on it with Jenny, one of the things that we talked about was when J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter, and it
Mhm.
was about like what an 11 or 12-year-old boy. How old was he at the very beginning? Like I forget. Like the first one, he was real young, right? Like
Yeah.
this
Well, there were
kid,
7 books. At the 7th book,
yeah,
he
and he was
graduated high
18,
school. Yeah, so it was like 4th or 5th grade?
11.
Does that sound
Yeah.
right?
So yeah,
Something
but
like that, yeah.
he was young. And here I
Yeah.
was, like the first time I read Harry Potter, I was in my like late 20s, and here I picked up a
Mhm.
book about an 11-year-old boy. And I totally dug it. And at that point, I wasn't reading middle grade, by the way. At that point, I didn't have any of my sights set on being a middle grade author. So I was mostly reading like British chick lit at the time, right?
Mhm.
But I picked up Harry Potter and I freaking loved it because she wrote him so genuinely that it appealed to more than just 11-year-old boys. And so I think that's what you can do. If you can tap into a character that you write who is so authentically themselves, I think it appeals to other people because reading is the closest you'll ever be to being in someone else's head.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. We want to experience life from someone else. I don't actually want to read characters who are just like me because I know what I would do.
Right. Right.
I want to read characters that, you know, I don't know, live a life that I would be too scared to live.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think Berlin helped us to put a fine point on this. It's not necessary. Your ideal reader is not necessarily um, a lover of the genre that you're writing, but your ideal reader should want, um, how do I say this? Should want um, to connect with a character
Mhm.
um, that that sometimes shows up in the genre that you're talking about. Sometimes they don't. Um, but that's why having a conversation with the ideal reader, asking what they love, what they would like to see subverted, I think is
Mhm.
a very important question because people will tell you, "Well, I watch all kinds of romance movies, but I wish I could see this."
Something else. Yeah.
Bam, that's your thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love a meet cute, but I wish, this would happen. Pay attention when they say, I wish I could see this, because that's your key a lot of times.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been a great hour. Can you
It
believe
has
that?
been a
I feel like
great
we
hour.
blink and I'm like, it's been an hour.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back. I think we've been doing these about every 2 weeks. I
Mhm.
think I think everyone's enjoying this format, so we will continue this. And um, tell us over in Dabble U what topic you would like for Abby and I to discuss uh, across the fireside on our next fireside chat. Let us know what you would be interested in hearing us wax eloquently, more Abby than me, on
Nah.
on the next topic. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you're in the deep south, like Abby and I are,
Bundle up.
watch your weather, and it's some crazy stuff going on right now. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next. I'll see you next Tuesday for writing sprints. Abby will see you next
I'll see
Wednesday
you
for
Wednesday.
coffee hour, and then if anybody shows up for Doug's writing sprint on Thursday, yeah,
Eh,
say hey to Doug for us.
yeah.
Anyway, we love you, Doug. All right, see you guys later. Thanks for joining
Bye,
us.
everybody.